So again, we have a similar flowchart to the fat loss section. We need to figure out mainly, is consistent calorie intake an issue? This is just nutrition, by the way. My main port of call when it comes to is somebody gaining muscle or not is what's their training program looking like. But if their training program is fine, we can look at all of this stuff. So if consistent calorie intake is an issue, is it intentional or not? If it is, then again, we need to discuss this with the client, discuss their motives for not sticking with the plan, and we need to possibly adapt the approach that we're taking. If it's not intentional, again, we need to educate them as to why they need to consistently eat more food. We can potentially track exact macros for a period of time to highlight inconsistencies. If consistent calorie intake isn't an issue, then we need to address energy balance. It's exactly the same as for fat loss. And again, we need to talk to the client to assess whether they would prefer to increase their calorie intake or just reduce their energy expenditure slightly. If we need to reduce energy expenditure, I'm not a huge fan of decreasing non-exercise activity. I think again that as personal trainers and as coaches, we need to be very, very wary of encouraging or being seen to encourage a sedentary lifestyle. Our number one priority has to at all times to be our clients' health and safety, and encouraging a sedentary lifestyle just goes against the grain with all of that. But if somebody is doing traditional cardiovascular exercise, then we can maybe look to reduce or eliminate that. We can potentially look to go through a period of low volume resistance training in order to just drop calorie expenditure via resistance training. Potentially there might be a mechanism, but increasing food intake is by far and away the most reliable way of increasing somebody's calorie surplus. We know from our data on leptin and its impact on non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and other studies looking at macronutrients and NEAT, that fat may not elicit the same kind of upregulation of NEAT. We may not see the same level of increase in activity when we overfeed with fat as when we overfeed with protein and carbs. We can look to consume some more liquid calories potentially just on a practical level, so smoothies, big post-workout shakes, lots of nut butter, etc., things like that to really boost the calorie intake there. And potentially, I say this slightly hesitantly, we can potentially encourage a little more junk food in our clients' diet. We can encourage some things that are maybe more hyper-palatable. We can maybe give them a little more leeway to go out and eat meals in restaurants if they can afford to, and if that's something they like doing. Things that allow them to consume more calories in a relaxed setting. That means that they're not struggling through 1,000 calories of sweet potato, chicken breast, and green beans. So at the top of each pyramid, we're pretty much at the end now. At the top of each pyramid, we talked about alcohol. We didn't really cover alcohol in great detail, and this is something that I want you to do in your own time, just as a little bit of homework. So we have a few questions to ask, 5 questions in total, just to answer. If you want to put the answers in the community tab below, that would be great. If you want to put them in the Facebook group, get a discussion going in there, that would also be awesome. Number 1, is alcohol calorific? Number 2, how does alcohol affect fat storage? Think acutely and chronically here as well. So over the short term and over the long term. What does alcohol do to your appetite or your ability to control your eating behaviors? Should alcohol be limited? Should we limit it or advise our clients to limit it beyond normal government guidelines during a dieting phase or a muscle gaining phase? Is there a difference between those two? Why? Dig into this one. There's no right or wrong answer necessarily here. Just dig into it. Have a think about this. And lastly, how would you track calories from alcoholic drinks? So just to recap, parts 1, 2, and 3. Part 1, we looked at creating a clear plan of action with your client. We need to assess their starting point. Do you need body composition analysis here? That's going to depend on each individual client and you and your circumstances. We want to identify the total amount of weight to lose, sensible rates of weight loss, and a strategy to take. Obviously, the dietary tracking continuum is a really useful tool when it comes to the strategy to take. In terms of sensible rates of weight loss, we're looking at 0.5 to 1.5% of total body weight loss per week. And sensible rate of weight gain, we're looking at 0.5 to 1.5% of body weight per month. We wanted to identify the differences in macro intake recommendations for fat loss and muscle gain. So fat loss and muscle gain for protein, we're looking at anywhere between 1.2 and 3 grams per kilogram. Fat being 15 to 35% of total calories, the remainder of your calories from carbs. 20 grams of fiber as a minimum, up to 20% of your total carb intake in grams, with a reasonable kind of jump of 10 grams per 1,000 calories of food. Underreporting is the most likely issue when it comes to weight loss plateaus, and inconsistent calorie intake is the most likely nutrition-based issue when it comes to weight gain or muscle gain plateaus. But we know that your training program is probably going to be by far and away the biggest issue when it comes to you not gaining muscle. Fats and liquid calories are potentially a useful strategy to get around a weight gain plateau as well. These are the references. Have a flick through, have a read if you want to do some further reading. And we will be back next time not with me, I believe it's with Coach Stewart, where we're going to be talking about client consultation processes. See you then.